Welcome to the AfterWord. We had, 2 weeks ago, an AfterWord that was over an hour long.
That was the AfterWord.
That was the after. This one might tie or go beyond, given the topic today.
There's a lot to consider. There are a lot of things to think through and talk through, and a lot of what ifs.
So we're going to attempt to do that.
Yeah.
At least with a lot of the what ifs, and see if we can flesh this out. But before we get to that, I'm getting ahead of myself. The AfterWord, what you're listening to right now, is the intent, anyways, to look at the passage that was just preached and to see also more of God's glory in it. These things should hopefully inform each other. We want to make sure we ask that question. What do we see of God that raises our affections for him there? I am joined today by Mr. Vince Black, elder and also paid pastor at the Town Church. I'm Eric, an elder, paid pastor at the Town Church, and also joined by Kirsten Black as well. All right, here is the infer. Here's
What
the
is
infer
that?
question. That's
Intro?
what we're going to call that
I think
now.
you meant intro.
The infer question this morning is
We're
this.
losing sponsors. They're pulling their sponsorships.
Will, don't pull your sponsorship. All right, here's the infer question. What was your undergrad degree and why? Why did you pursue it? What did you think you were going to do with it? Undergrad degree and why?
This feels pretty pointed.
Yeah, Vince, what was yours?
Let's go somewhere else first.
Okay, Kirsten?
I started out in elementary education, and I got to my senior year, and I was like, I don't even like kids. I do not know what I'm doing.
So why did you choose that in the first place?
Probably
It's so lucrative.
yeah. Both of my sisters are teachers. My mom was a teacher. So I think I probably felt like this is the family business. Like, this is what we do in this family. And then, I was like, I don't like kids. So I like my own kids, but
Sometimes. Most of the time.
most of the time. So I ended up graduating with a degree in psychology because it was the only thing I could graduate in 4 years with. And then I went on and got a master's in counseling.
What did you think you were going to do with your psychology degree? Was it to go on for more school?
No, my parents were pretty unhappy with me that I didn't have a quote unquote useful degree.
Oh, yeah.
And so I just wanted to finish in 4 years because they would pay for 4 years, but not for 5. So I just wanted to finish in 4 years. And so psychology was the only degree that I could graduate, that I had the right class sets to actually graduate in 4 years. So I didn't think that far in advance. I just knew that I would be done with college. And then, but they were very unhappy that I didn't have a degree I could use. So then I went on to get a master's.
That makes sense. So psychology.
Yes.
Vince, what about you?
Yesterday I met several college students, and it was good to meet several of these guys who, several of them were in their sophomore year, and as I was standing and talking to all of them, I kind of went around the circle. Hey, what are you studying? What's your degree in? And they said things that I'm not sure I still know what they are, like chemistry or something, and something engineering. And one kid said he was doing this, but really he was only doing this because it would push him forward, because eventually he wants to be an astronaut. I was just feeling dumber and dumber with each person that I asked. So that was that. And they then would say, well, what was your degree in? Mm-hmm. And I said, like you did. I started in architecture for one shining semester.
Which, if I remember right, is why when you handwrite, you do the G's the way you do your G's.
I don't know.
Is that right?
Maybe. I don't know about that.
Okay.
I did learn. This was before computer stuff was really widely in use. So we did spend a semester learning how to write the alphabet and write in that architectural lettering. Huh. Yeah. That was not for me.
Which, fun fact, Vince does not know how to write in cursive because he only knows how to write in like architecture writing.
Yeah,
so
untrained. I don't know how to connect letters in cursive writing.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do it.
There's a whole philosophy on why cursive is still taught in some schools. I won't get into it because it's a little controversial in my heart, but it's still being taught. It's being taught boldly.
Yeah. No, I know. We have some students under that tutelage in our own home. So then I went on from there, and I have a degree in sculpture.
And why did you choose sculpture?
That's I wanted to do art, and for me, three-dimensional art is, my brain connects with it better because I can actually see it. I guess if I'm completely honest, I think it's easier. Two-dimensional, you have to trick the viewer into seeing what's actually there, or seeing what they're trying to get you to see is there. Three-dimensional, it's all there.
Yeah.
So that's what I did, and I studied the human form. So to know that the human form, you can see it in its full view. You have to see it all. You're not tricking the eye.
Share about your senior project. What do you call it? Thesis? No, not thesis. Senior
project. Yeah.
Project. Yeah.
So yeah, I studied for 4 years. I studied the ideal human form. What's known as the ideal human form. That what's the man that Da Vinci, the Vitruvian Man, was that what it's called? Anyway, the classic man that has his arms out, and it shows the perfect dimensions. Yeah. It's the classic figure. And so that's what we studied. And so my senior project was a combination of this classic human form with the idea that God has created everyone in his image. And if God is the creator and he does not make mistakes making us in his image, then every human that he creates is the classic human form. And so I studied that year the human form of those who were missing limbs, and what that would do to their physical structure, and how the muscles and things laid around their bodies in that way. And I presented them, and they were life size, and I presented them as classical pieces of sculpture, so on pedestals, lit in that way. It was in the gallery.
Was your hope to do art professionally?
Yeah, I mean, my sculpture professor was grooming me to be either a teacher, go on and get my master's in teach, and also he was training me how to write commissions and do commissioned artwork. So I was working with him to do that. And
you did not do that.
I did not do that.
That's a spoiler alert for our listeners.
Yeah, that's a different conversation.
Well, you also got a double major in art and then biblical studies, and I think God just kind of lit your heart on fire for his word at that point.
Yeah, I started taking Hebrew as my foreign language because I had to take a foreign language it was a Bachelor of Arts, so I had to take a foreign language, and I didn't want to take Spanish and German or French or the sort of normal ones. So I asked if I could take Hebrew. At first they said no, because it was actually in the biblical studies department, not the language department. And I said, but it's a language. So I fought it, and they finally agreed to let me take 2 years of Hebrew 2 years of biblical Hebrew as my foreign language to meet the requirement. And it just, my mind and heart blew up with being able to study God's word in the original language. So
cool.
Anyway,
cool.
There you go. So, for all you biochemists, whatever people out there, I'm glad there's people like you.
Yeah, me too, for sure.
What about you, Eric?
Yeah, I did not declare my undergrad degree until the beginning of my junior year because I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I did all my gen eds my freshman and sophomore year until I ran out of gen eds to take. And then I thought, well, I better declare because I don't want to spend more than 4 years in undergrad as well. And I ended up declaring humanities was the degree, which is basically an undecided degree because it's everything except for the sciences, and you just get to choose which classes you want to take, and then that's your degree. So you had to choose some different emphasis. My primary emphasis was religion. My secondary was history because I already had some history classes. and then I had a minor in biology. So it's the liberal arts like stereotype, super wide, exposed to a lot of things, but not super deep in any one area.
And not useful at all.
Yeah, I did not have a career in mind when I chose humanities.
So between the three of us,
We
we
probably
have
have, like-
we have thousands and thousands of dollars
Yeah.
spent in
Worthless
and,
education.
Yeah, we have psychology, humanities, and sculpture.
Yeah.
We could go on the road with that, I think, and do
Do
stuff,
what? Do
stuff,
what?
and do stuff.
Things.
Things.
Yeah, things. Humanity things.
So hopefully there you go.
Yeah.
That's our undergrad. And, our
And we just
reasons-
lost our listener.
Reasons why.
We lost the respect.
Yeah, a
of our
lot of
listener.
respect is what we just lost.
Yep.
All right, Vince, give us a recap from yesterday.
All right, it's the final of the laws that Jesus gives after he says he's come not to abolish the law, but to fulfill it. He's walked through anger, lust, divorce, oaths, and these are, remember, he's getting beneath the understood law of the day to the heart beneath it, the heart obedience that would produce the fruit there of obedience. So that's what he's getting at. Followers of Jesus are to obey because it's flowing from their heart. So he's wanting to get beneath that. So this week, two pretty hard-hitting laws that come at it. I think from my perspective, I'd be interested to know others' perspective here, but these are the trickiest because they really grab onto our hearts. And so he starts with the very classic law, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. You've heard that it's been said, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. But then he goes on the same pattern, but I say to you, and he moves through the four different areas that we are to be willing to give up instead of retaliate. So instead of looking to receive an eye for a wounded eye, we are to be willing to give up our own safety and our money and our time and our possessions in a way to love others. And then the next law is, you've heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. And so he rearranges that, gets at the heart of that, and shows what it looks like to love our enemies, giving us examples that God is the example. Not the Gentiles, not the tax collectors, because they're doing it out of selfish motive. God's doing it as a perfect father, and the final command is be perfect. There you go. And Jesus drops the mic and walks off the stage, be perfect.
So what is the underlying heart problem that Jesus is getting at?
In which one?
Can we do one for all of them?
I think it's self. Right? A focus on self and not on, as he's looking for followers, he's looking for humble followers who have a desire to obey because it's an act of worship, not a desire to obey because it promotes self. So it's pointing all the attention at him.
Yeah, and yesterday you used the language of rights quite a bit,
Yeah.
of laying down or holding more loosely our rights,
Yeah.
that this pings on in our hearts. Like we have reactions to this in our hearts as we read what Jesus says, and we have all of our what ifs and but what about this and that and the other thing. And so I think what might be helpful is for a lot of our conversation now to talk about some of those what ifs, some of what Jesus is not saying, maybe even trying to separate out our Americanism and our Christianity. Those two can easily blend in and start to inform each other, maybe in some unhelpful ways, especially in passages like this.
Yeah.
And see where it goes. Sound
Let's do
okay?
it. Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, I asked for questions yesterday because I know, I knew as I studied this and thought about where to go with it and thought about what I think Jesus is getting at, I knew that it would raise questions, and I'm not pointing fingers other than to point a finger at myself too. It pokes at something in us when we feel that there's an injustice on our own lives in some way. Our gut, like our flinch, our immediate response is to say, yeah, but what about this? And so I knew that it would raise some questions, and I got some. We had some good conversation yesterday and even this morning. And I knew that would be the case, I think that's what Jesus is doing. He's calling us to radical life of following him, and it's comfortable to not be radical. It's comfortable to sit where we are and feel like we want to get what we want to get and what we deserve. So,
well, I think what we see in this is that the spirit that Jesus is looking for is one that's concerned for justice, but they don't have any concern for their own image or personal loss. And that rubs against everything that is human. That, we want to be concerned for justice when it impacts us because we're concerned about our image or we're concerned about personal loss. But Jesus is saying, actually, no, I want you to be concerned for justice. I want you to be concerned for the things that I'm concerned for, but I want you to be concerned for them without care about how it's going to impact you.
Yeah, how you might face loss, right? Yeah.
Okay, so let's do this. Let's structure our conversation around those four things that Jesus gets at: right over body, right over possessions, right with our time, and our rights with our money. He touches on all four of these things. So let's just start with body, safety.
Yeah.
Let's start with that one. And I'll just maybe start to ask some questions and see where the conversation goes.
Sure.
So when Jesus says,
if anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to him the other also.
Yes. So let's start with this one. Is Jesus calling us to be doormats or soft or just allow maybe abuse or let's just start there.
Right.
Is he calling Christians to be doormats?
Yeah. So the question is, Jesus is saying, hey, just stick it out. If someone abuses you, someone slaps you, just stick it out. Take it. Is that what he's asking?
I mean, I think the natural human response when we are feeling attacked, there's two options. The one is to be a doormat. It's the passive response that we just keep taking it. We just have to lay down and take it and not do anything about it. And then there's the vindictive response that says, I'm going to get you back. And when I get you back, I'm going to do worse to you. And there's every combination in there too, varying levels of that. And I think that the Christian response is to both face the wrong on the outside, but also have peace and forgiveness on the inside. And so Jesus is calling us, as we see in this whole chapter, to a higher standard. He's not saying be a doormat, and he's not saying pay back, but he's saying you need to engage with the conflict. You need to address it. You can't just be a doormat and let people walk all over you, but you also can't get back at people in a vindictive way. And so it's both how you respond, but also what's going on in your heart.
Yeah, that's what I would grab onto, Kirsten, is the heart thing. The way I would phrase that is that Jesus is not even getting at how did you respond, but where's your heart first inclined to respond? I think we maybe too often use driving illustrations, but someone cuts you off. Are you all like this? Like, if someone cuts you off, my instant reaction is, what in the world? And I want to speed around them and cut them off, or at least that's my gut sort of reaction. I don't often do that, but does anybody else there?
No, I usually think,
okay.
Well,
okay.
God bless you.
Oh, yeah, sure.
That was nice. Thanks for doing that. Yeah.
Huh. But so that I think that Jesus is getting at those things. It's not necessarily, although it comes out in that way, it comes out in the action. It's where's your heart in this? Are you willing to not go that direction? Is your heart moved in that direction? To get back to your question, Eric, and I tried to address this yesterday. There's a lot of things to address and not a lot of time. Jesus is not calling Christians to be a doormat. He's not calling them to just roll over. He's not calling people who are in abusive situations to endure through that abusive situation without any protection or accountability for the abuser. That's not what he's doing. In fact, I would say we could look, and we have to interpret Scripture with Scripture, and there are lots of places where we see in Scripture that there has to be accountability for sin. There has to be protection for those who are in places of vulnerability. We the church, we people around need to be helping protect and bring protection and safety to those who are in those kinds of relationships. So Jesus isn't saying to those who are being abused, stick it out. That's the godly way, stick it out. But I think I would say to the person who might be in an abusive situation is, what is your heart flinch there? Is it, I'm going to kill them, or whatever that is? Is that the heart, or is there something different there? What's the radical lifestyle that Jesus is calling you to?
Well, and I think it's not loving to let someone sin and to keep sinning. And so if someone is sinning against you, you're actually not loving them by allowing that to continue. Yeah. And so, I think often when people are in abusive situations, there's a mindset that somehow it's more courageous for them to stay in than it is for them to get out. And I think that's maybe a way to try to cope with the abuse. But I think if we take the example of abuse or addiction, a passive response is, I just need to take it. I need to love this person as they are, and I need to take it. But again, that's not loving them, because we're letting them continue on in sin. A vindictive response would be, get out of my life. Don't ever come back. I don't want a relationship with you. Right. And I think what Jesus is calling us to in a Christian response is to say, I love you. I desire a relationship with you, but I can't have a relationship with you when you're practicing your addiction, when you're abusing me or abusing kids, whatever it is. And so I'm going to step away for a time, and then when you're ready to change, I'm here. And so it's a willingness to continue to engage in relationship, but with boundaries in place. And I think often as Christians, we call things boundaries when they're actually walls. Like, we build up walls to keep people out, and boundaries are actually a healthy way to engage in relationship, whereas walls are intended to kind of push people out. And so I think in this situation, with these extreme situations of abuse or addiction or whatever it is, we need to understand that Jesus is not saying just take it, but he is saying create healthy boundaries and be willing to still engage once there's a measure of health.
Right. Yeah.
So Jesus is not saying boundaries don't exist for Christians.
Right.
They just take everything. And yet there may be times when the call is to absorb whatever it is, and be willing to absorb it. It seems like, Kirsten, to your point, and really, Vince, what you've been saying through this whole sermon series, is that the question to ask underneath of that is, how can I love this person and love God in this situation? And that may mean absorbing, and it may mean setting some healthy boundaries into place as well.
Well, and I think we have to go to 1 Corinthians 13, and what is love? It's patient, it's kind. It doesn't envy, it doesn't boast, it's not arrogant, it's not rude, it's not self-seeking. So what does loving a person actually look like? And putting it through that filter, and understanding that love doesn't necessarily mean just laying down and getting stepped all over, and it doesn't necessarily mean standing up against everything, but it's really prayerfully considering, like, what does it mean to love in this situation?
Yeah, and I would go back to just the base question overall for of these categories, and there are other categories for sure, but the base conversation is, are you willing? Is your heart willing to let go of that right, that freedom in a way that shows a love for God and others? Are you willing to do that? It's a right that you have. Are you willing to let that go?
Yeah, and I think this question probably applies to all four of these, but it seems like maybe a good time to talk about it. There's a lot of talk from different angles, both in Christianity as well as secular angles, about how to care for yourself, how to ensure you're healthy personally. Can I ask the question, how does that play into this passage when we talk about giving up rights, body, possessions, time, money? How do we put in boundaries, that sort of thing? is it Christian to think, how can I be healthy here? Or are there nuances there? How do we think about that?
Well, yeah, to push your question to the extreme, there's this big movement right now of, you've got to love yourself, right? Before you can love anyone else, you have to love yourself. And I'm not completely sure what that means, from every person who says that. I think the way I think about it, Eric, is that we have to be. I think there's a call on our lives to be healthy. It's how we would define that. What does that mean? And then I would maybe say, I'm going to think out loud here. Then I would maybe say, to what end are you looking to be healthy or, quote, love yourself, to be loving towards yourself? To what end? Is it primarily to protect and preserve yourself? If so, I think we need to rethink that. If it's primarily, I want to be healthy so that I can serve my family in a more healthy way, then I think that's God honoring. I want to be healthy so that I can extend care to those who are in vulnerable situations. I want to be healthy and have a good healthy identity of who I am so that I can serve the church in a more healthy way. So if the end goal is not self, but the end goal is what has God called me to love him and love others, then I think it fits in here.
Well, and I think that the question of loving yourself is a little bit misleading in and of itself, because when we look at Scripture, Jesus commands, the first and greatest commandment, love the Lord your God, and the next is love your neighbor as yourself. And so the assumption there is that you already are loving yourself. And I think that is actually our human nature, is that we love ourselves and we love what makes us feel good and we love to make ourselves happy. And so I think we need to understand that we probably love ourselves a lot more than we realize. And sure, there's all the internal dialogue, especially that women struggle with in particular, of self-hatred or loathing and stuff like that. But I don't think that's necessarily what Jesus is talking about.
Right.
But it's working. He's working from the assumption of, okay, you see how you love yourself, now go love your neighbor that way too. And so maybe putting yourself in the spotlight and understanding, well, these are the things that I do to love myself. And Jesus is saying, okay, go do that for your neighbor as well. And so it's not just a self-love, but it's an understanding of, I already do love myself probably a lot more than I need to.
Right, which I think is exactly why this passage, 38 through 42, is so hard to let go of those things that we want to hold on to so tightly, because it's wired in sinfully. Well, I shouldn't say that. I'll back up on that. Not all of it is sinful wiring. There are some good things about the way that we have been wired. There's some God ordained ways that we have been designed, but that moves quickly toward the sinful. So that's exactly why he's saying, yeah, and you need to be willing to give up these things, these rights. Did that get at what you were asking, Eric?
I think so. And I think, well, actually, we might talk about a little bit more of some of these other categories as we get through there. I have one other question that might be coming to mind for our two listeners here on this verse. So I think probably one thing comes to mind, a stereotypical example is, what about pure evil, like people like Hitler or other people who are committing atrocities? Is Jesus calling us to a place of passivity here in the face of evil like that?
Yeah. Bring Hitler into any conversation, it'll shut it down, right?
Yeah.
I think we have to fight for freedom. We have to fight for what is right, but we also need to fight for it from the perspective that we're already free. We're free in Christ. I've been declared free. And so we no longer get to have the role of getting even, but we have to fight for the things that break God's heart. And we have to fight for the things that are right. And so, but understanding that I'm fighting for it because these are the things that God is passionate about and that God cares about. And I'm not doing it in a vindictive way. I'm not doing it to get even. And I'm doing it from a platform of freedom. Like, I'm already free in Christ. Everything that I have could be taken away, but I can't lose what I have in Christ. And so letting that be the basis of why I'm choosing to fight, and not to get even, and not to pay back wrong for wrong.
Yeah, and I talked through this with someone yesterday, and again, a lot of my processing through questions from yesterday was me thinking out loud, because these are hard things to sort through. But in a very, very oversimplified way, and I say that sincerely, this is simplified, but to use the Hitler example, and also to tie in what you said, Kirsten, that we're already free, the verse that I quoted yesterday from John 1:11 and 12, that we have the right to be called children of God. That is a right that has been given to us by God, and we can hold on to that. We'll never lose that. So if here's all the what ifs. If I'm in a concentration camp, I've been horribly abused, my rights, whatever those may be, have been completely stripped away from me. Everything has been taken from me. It's likely that I will continue to be abused and maybe even moved toward my death. I still am able to love God and love others. And that, I know this is oversimplifying, that is the radical way that Jesus is calling us to live. That even in the midst of all of our rights completely stripped from us, what we would call rights are completely stripped from us, we're still able to love God and love others because we have the right to be called children of God. Now, that's simple to talk about. That's simple to say quickly. That's simple to say, well, here's the answer. In the midst of that, it's really challenging to say, and I'm not going to retaliate, or I don't have the ability to retaliate. And so here I am.
Well, I think we have to be reminded that in the midst of situations like that, God gives maybe a special measure of His Spirit to enable you to do that. Yeah. And so, when I anticipate things, I think I could never do that. I could never respond in a way that would be glorifying to God. And yet God also, in those moments, gives us what we need to endure and to glorify Him. And so we can't really plan to be able to do that, because I think in our own power we're not able, but by the Spirit we will be made able. And I think to add to that, we have to look at the life of Jesus, and that He never sought vengeance when He was treated badly. It was never about His reputation. It wasn't about how He was treated unjustly, but He did fight for the good of others. That was one thing that He stood up for, but never for Himself. And so even looking at 1 Peter 2, 20 to 23, when He was insulted, He did not insult in return, but instead He entrusted Himself to the one who judges justly. Right. And so Jesus didn't seek vengeance, and He entrusted Himself to God to judge the people that were insulting Him and that were attacking Him.
Yeah, so there's still a place to fight for good. Right?
Right.
There's lots of examples of this. Slavery in this country is one example, right? There's still a place. Jesus is not saying just let evil or injustice
exist.
Go. Yeah, I mean, that is contrary to so much of the Bible anyway. Jesus is not saying that. What Jesus is getting at, Vince, to your point, is our individual hearts.
Yeah.
Are we attempting to love this other person, or are we just protecting ourselves and loving ourselves?
Yeah. And I would say in the ways that you just said that, Eric, Jesus isn't, he's calling us to fight for what is good and right. Mm-hmm. And even if that fight goes nowhere, we still have the right to be called children of God. That's not taken from us. Mm-hmm. So our Christian freedom is still there. We are still free in Christ. And it pushes against our American way of life.
Yeah, you hit me, I'm going to hit you back.
Yeah, no, that's not how we do things. This is a right of mine. Mm-hmm. And that's owed to me, and that's what America was founded on. And all of those things are right. They're true. They're true things. America was founded on these things. We have, these what life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Those are things those are American rights that have been granted to us. But we have to hear that they are American, not Christ given.
I think a helpful practice for me is that when there are really tough passages like this, is finding like a podcast or a sermon from a pastor in another country, and listening to the same passage preached from a different cultural context. And the things that stand out are often really the same. And so I did that this week with this passage. As I used to work with a guy from who's a Black African from South Africa. He's a pastor there, and I listened to his sermon on this same passage. And really the things that he highlighted were the same things that Vince highlighted. And so I think it's important just to understand if you're feeling confused about like, where does my Americanness marry with my Christianity? And if there's a lot of tension over this passage, like maybe looking a little bit more at the global church and understanding maybe if people from other countries, Christians from other areas of the world are struggling with the same thing, then that's probably a Christian struggle. If it's only something that's happening here in America, then it's probably an American struggle and it's not actually part of the Christian faith. And so, I'd be happy to direct you to this pastor that I know in South Africa, if that would be helpful.
Sure.
But, just getting a little more acquainted with what the global church is enduring and engaging with, and understanding that the Bible is applicable for the entire world and not just what we face here in America.
I think maybe some helpful distinctions could be to think about it differently, that we have rights, but there are also gifts that we have been given. And a lot of the things that I think we hold on to in America and call them rights are American rights, but they're actually God-given gifts that other places in the world have not been given. That doesn't mean that there's a special extension of love toward America. It's just that we're in a place in time where we experience some good gifts of God that others don't experience, and we don't experience some of the good gifts of God that others experience in other places of the world. But to call them gifts, not rights.
Yeah, so let's push this a little bit. Let's talk about maybe some...
Let's keep losing listeners.
Yeah, let's keep losing. So what might be some examples of that we in America take as a right, but it's really a good gift from God that we are now called to hold loosely? Liberty?
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, I think, are good gifts. Here we go. Here's our listeners. I can hear the computers closing now. I think those are good gifts from God that he's granted to us in the country we currently live in. I don't think those are rights that we have to hold on to. And I would even push it, and I'd love pushback here. I would even say that life is not a right that we have,
but rather a divine gift.
It's a good gift from God that he has granted to us. He holds in his hand our life. It's not a right that we have. It's a good gift from him. I would say freedom. We have to say freedom because there are other places around the world that are not living in freedom and they're still pursuing Jesus. Mm-hmm. And so, and on we could go.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna go to freedom and like the freedom to gather, the freedom to worship. Yeah. We have that freedom here in America, and we can get together on a Sunday or anytime we want and worship with other believers and worship as we want. That's not a freedom that someone in China necessarily has or North Korea. And yet the church is growing like wildfire there. And
allegedly. If you're listening to this from one of those countries, allegedly.
It's growing like wildfire there. And there's real danger for those people. There's real sacrifice. And they know that getting together to worship with other believers could mean imprisonment for them. It could mean the loss of whatever freedoms they do have. And so I think in America, we take for granted that freedom, and we think it's a right, when really it's a freedom that God has given us right now in the season that we're in America. But that may change.
And it is a right in America. right? That's what I am trying to push at a little bit, is that even if that right was taken away from us, which it may be, we still have the right to be called children of God. We can still love God and love others.
I'm going to move on. These topics are going to continue to come back. Let's talk about possessions here. This is verse 40. Jesus says, "And if anyone would sue you and take your tunic, let him have your cloak as well." So a loosening of our grip upon our own possessions, and maybe to give those possessions freely.
Yeah.
Let me ask this question. Does this envision some sort of communism? Is this, I need certain possessions for my livelihood, or just for me to be able to live. I need shelter, clothing, that sort of thing. So there must be a line there somewhere also that I can't give everything away if somebody were to ask me for everything. So how do I discern where the line is? Is it the same thing that's similar to where the line is for my body? Or is it different here?
Again, I would say Jesus is getting at the heart, and it's the willingness of the heart to be open-handed in those things, not necessarily the did you do it, but are you willing? If given the opportunity, if presented the opportunity, are you willing to let go of what you would call your rights and your possessions for the sake of being salt and light? I'm not even going to say for the sake of loving others, because this isn't a case of loving others necessarily. It's a way to extend love, but it's a way to be salt and light, to not push back against and argue with and retaliate against, but to be open-handed and to say, this is not worth this, a push here. To be able to open my hand and let go of this is more honoring to Christ and potentially more loving to the other person, points all the attention to God, not self.
Because it's so contrary to our selfish human nature.
It's radical.
Yeah.
Well, and as you were talking, Eric, the widow's offering in Mark 12 came to mind. It says, Jesus said, "Truly I tell you, this poor widow has put in more into the treasury than all the others. They gave out of their wealth, but she, out of her poverty, put in everything, all she had to live on." And so I think Jesus commends her as having more faith and more generosity because she gave everything she had, whereas the others were giving out of their wealth. And so it really wasn't a sacrifice for them. And so I do think that we're called to give sacrificially. And sometimes that should hurt. Like, sacrifice hurts at times. And so, if what we're giving doesn't put a little bit of a pinch sometimes on what we're wanting to do, then maybe we could consider, am I giving sacrificially? Am I willing to give this up and trust God for the rest, or trust God that I actually don't need all these things that I think I need?
Which then applies to the next category of time. So verse 41, "And if anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with him 2 miles.
Let's skip this one. This is the one that gets at me the most. I mean, this is I am much more willing to give up stuff, give up money. I've never been faced where someone has slapped me, but I might not like that either. But they give my time is my time, and it's valuable to me. And so that's a really hard one for me, that, if what is asked of me is my time, am I willing to not just do that, but be willing to give of more?
Yeah, this one is by far the hardest for me, I think, as well. I've been convicted of this in the recent weeks anyway, that I am not generous with my time. I am really stingy. If it comes down to it, I'm really honest with myself. Yeah. Stingy with my kids, with my time, my wife, others. I am always trying to pull, in my heart anyway, I'm always trying to pull away and just be by myself. Yeah. Like, whenever it is, that's what I'm trying to do. But we saw Jesus be extremely generous with his time, but we also saw him pull away and be by himself, which is getting back to a little bit of this tension. Like, we can give from reserves that we have, but that means we have reserves. That means that we are healthy human beings. And so there's still a line here somewhere. Like I can't give indefinitely of my time and then have something left to give in whatever time frame that is, right?
Yeah, I think what we see of Jesus, though, is he pulled away to be by himself so that he could commune with God. I think a couple things. So that he could commune with God, be near the Father, or he pulled away to be by himself so that he could, if we can use this wording, refuel and be back on the mission that God had called him to be about. I don't know that we see places in the New Testament where Jesus pulled away to be by himself to fill up himself with the end goal of being a better self, all about self. It was either to be near God, the Father, or to be refueled to be back on the mission that God, the Father, had called him to be about.
Yeah, this is quiet because I'm thinking about this as we go. I wonder, there's something beautiful about personally enjoying God and just enjoying him.
Yeah.
And not necessarily have it because of some other end, right? But that is not contradictory to what I think we're saying.
Yep.
We are called to be healthy individuals, and part of that is enjoying God for who he is. And so that is the glorious end in and of itself.
Yep.
But then there's an overflow from that, which is then loving others and living in Christian sort of ways, I suppose.
Yep.
Is that a fair way to think about it?
I think so. I think when Jesus pulled away to be near the Father, the end goal was the enjoyment of being near the Father.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And so I think our trap is that we often think about, I need to be near God so that I can hear from him, so that will give me more ammo, so to speak, to get back on mission with what I was supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
But it may be okay. It is okay to be with God for the sake of being with God.
Which seems to be, man, that touches on something else. This is going to be a really long podcast. I think often when we read the Bible, we are reading it to see how can I be a better dad? How can I be a better Christian in general?
I bet Kirsten's not.
Yeah, or a better mom.
Yeah, I've never read it with being a dad in mind.
Or better friend, or whatever.
Yeah.
As I need to get the application, now go do something to be better at something.
Yeah.
Where really the application should be seeing more of our glorious God and enjoying him. And from that flows all kinds of a desire to live in these more Christian ways. There's a tension there, but it seems like it's just a flipping of what comes first in the Christian life in general, which then also applies to our specific conversation here with what Jesus is getting at.
Well, I mean, I think it's changing the understanding of the narrative. Rather than going to the Bible to read about how I can be a better person, be a better mom, be a better friend, I have to go to the Bible with the understanding that this is not actually a story about me, but this is God's story. And so this teaches me more about who God is. And then as I grow in my understanding of who God is, then his Spirit does a work in me that makes me more like Christ. And so it's not this effort of me trying to be better, but it's God working in me, making me more like Jesus. And so it's, a continual dying to self, which is not something I do on my own, but it's the Spirit, pushing against me and saying, Kirsten, that's selfish and your motivation is selfish. And so then it's me responding to the Spirit and moving forward with the things that I didn't necessarily want to do because I know that the Spirit's prompting me to do it. And so it really is a rewriting of the narrative and understanding that it's not this put your head down, give a better effort and do more, but it's a surrender. And it's let me learn about who God is. And the more I learn about who he is and the more he changes me, then the more I become a person that looks more and more like Jesus.
Which is radical.
Yeah.
And it's, I won't use the American thing anymore. I don't want to make more people mad. It's not human.
Yeah.
It's not the human inclination to say, how can this, whatever it is that I'm facing, be about someone other than me?
Yeah.
For the human, it's how can this be about me?
And man, we need to be reminded of that often, because that's the Christian life, isn't it?
Yeah.
But if we switch what comes first, we get off on, man, some legalistic, something else. And so that applies here.
Yeah.
So really, I think it's fair to say that when Jesus says we're supposed to be gracious with our time, the main point is not our time itself, right? It's an overflow of our gratitude and obedience to our good God because we want to. And so then that begs the question, how do I become more gracious with my time? I spend more time with God. I spend more time with Jesus and understand more of who he is, what he's done for me, and the Spirit works in my heart to be more gracious with my time rather than just focusing on my time as the primary thing.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, so next one, money.
Hey,
we're in a building campaign.
Yeah, that's right. Give to the one who begs, and we're begging you. We're begging you.
Verse 42, give to the one who begs from you and do not refuse the one who would borrow from you.
I got questions about this yesterday.
Do it.
Well, I had people say, I have a really hard time when I see someone begging, and it I think we've probably all experienced it recently, where every corner at busy intersections is another person. And what's going on there? How do we handle that? And I think, again, we have to think about where's our heart. I think the two words that are helpful here is give. So he says, give to the one who begs, do not refuse. So the positive is give, the negative is do not refuse. Those two principles, if you will, I think are extremely challenging. Give, be open-handed, be ready to let go, and don't refuse. How is your heart hitting out on those things? So
I have a personal rule where I never give money to somebody who's begging. And my justification is because everybody I've talked to at rescue missions and social work say do not do it because it will, like you said yesterday, enable some sort of bad habit. And so, remember when we had a warming center years ago? I remember talking to somebody who was there who was experiencing homelessness, and I asked them the question, where does that money go?
By the way, this is a time in our other building where we were able to invite those who were experiencing homelessness at the time in for a couple hours on cold evenings just to be in our building, to have a warm space. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. And so I remember talking to one of the gentlemen there, and I said, so where's that money go? And he goes, it does go to all those stereotypical things. And so, and for me, it's not even an option. And maybe that's what Jesus is pushing on.
Yeah.
If the Spirit does direct me to give money, would I listen and be willing to, or would I fall back onto my own little personal rule?
Yeah. So a couple anecdotal things there. I was in Old Town one time, and a guy came up to me and said, "Hey, do you have a couple dollars? I'd like to go into this bar and buy a beer." and I said, "You know what? I do have a couple dollars. You were honest with me.
Treat you to a beer.
Straightforward with me. I'm going to do that." So yeah, he was honest. There we go. So that kind of supports your idea. The other thing, I read this a long time ago. I read Oswald Chambers' autobiography. No, biography. I think it was a biography. But the story was told, Oswald Chambers he was an artist, and he ran a house that others could come and live in at any time. And he said he made it a policy, the opposite of what you're saying, that he made it a policy that if anyone ever came and knocked on the door of the house and asked for money, he gave it to them knowing that it wasn't his money to begin with. So is it possible that both of you are right?
Both of who?
You and Oswald Chambers. Both of those perspectives are right perspectives. Is it possible that the Spirit may be moving in someone to cause discernment, cause some conviction there that, I'm not going to do that. And for the other person to say, I always give, because that's the sense I get that I need to be doing.
Well, and I think there can also be...
No, I asked a question.
Oh.
You can't go. I'm asking a question.
You can both be right, yes. They can both be right.
Yeah.
I think they both can. I think there can be a deep conviction. And I was going to say, I think with that, you can also have a conviction of generosity without necessarily giving money. And so, like years ago, the youth group, we made homeless bags. And so we put in, like a pair of socks and some snacks and a toothbrush, and just gave them to people in the church to carry in their car, so that when they did come across a homeless person, they could hand them something. They could give them something that they knew would not be spent on drugs or alcohol or anything like that. And if you really feel convicted strongly not to give money, you can give gift cards. You can give, I've gone before and bought like McDonald's gift cards and just handed those out. And so there's ways that you can be generous, and there's ways that you can give. There have been people standing in parking lots at grocery stores, and I've said, I don't have any money to give you, but I'd be happy to bring you inside to the grocery store and buy what you need. And so there's ways that we can do that and navigate the stickiness of not giving cash necessarily, but still being generous with people and saying yes and giving to them.
Yeah, it sure seems like to me that's a huge theme in what Jesus is saying here, being generous in these 4 things, because these 4 things aren't really yours,
right?
Like a right to yours to hold and protect anyway. Our body, our possessions, our time, our money.
Right. Yeah, these are heart issues, and the heart issue is, are you willing to let go? Or are you set on just holding on to your thing because it's about you? Yeah.
Man, I don't know if I want to hear that.
Yeah. We can rip this page out of the Bible.
I'd like to rip out some other ones as well. All
right. Yeah, and I don't know where we are in time, but Jesus moves straight from that into love your neighbor. I think he's a master teacher, and he's connecting these things. I think we have to see them as connected.
These things are not yours. Be generous with them. And what that means is obviously not retaliating, but then loving your neighbor.
Yep. It's the opposite side of it, of loving your neighbor. One
question we got emailed to us was this. Is what Jesus is teaching here, is this applicable only to other believers, or generosity to other believers, or is it applicable to all people?
I think it has to be applicable to all people. I mean, I think Jesus is calling us to shock people with love and grace. I heard about the teaching here on, and if anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with them 2 miles. And the context of that was that there was a law in the Roman kingdom that any Roman soldier could ask anybody to carry their backpack, carry their weapons, carry anything they wanted for a mile, and the person had to carry it for a mile. And so clearly he's not talking about one believer to the next in this situation. He's saying if you're a believer and a Roman soldier comes and asks you to carry his weapons that could turn around and kill you, he asks you to carry those for a mile, go ahead and carry it for 2 miles. And so what Jesus is saying is it's a call to radical love and shock people with the truth of this is what it means to follow Jesus, and let them be the recipients of that.
Which makes sense with how Jesus defined neighbor and love your neighbor.
Yeah.
So yes, the answer to that question, Vince, would you agree, is it's all people, not just believers?
Yep. I think it is a way we are salt and light.
Yep. Yeah. All right, we are at almost an hour.
Okay.
I knew it.
Yeah.
Is there anything else we want to address here before I ask our last question?
I mean, the only other thing that I'll just say quickly, and it's going to relate to your last question, so should I hold it?
No.
The only other thing that I would point at is the very last verse of the chapter, that you therefore to be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. So Jesus bookends this set of laws with the gospel. I mean, it's the gospel set up. I did not come to abolish the law. I came to fulfill it. You have to be more righteous than the scribes and the Pharisees. You cannot be. You have to be perfect, like your heavenly Father is perfect. You cannot be. That's why I came. So it's the perfect gospel setup.
Well, I'm sure feeling my need right now for Jesus, having just gone through what we've gone through.
Yeah.
So what do you see of this passage here that raises your affections for our good God?
It's that for me. I mean, that to me is shocking. Be perfect. It's so shocking to read that, to hear it, and to know on the front end of this, Jesus, that I came to fulfill that. But still, the call is toward perfection. Even though Christ has come to fulfill it, he's still calling us to have an overflow of obedience, knowing that we won't ever be perfectly obedient, but he's already covered that.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same, just the beauty of the gospel, that we are called to a standard of perfection. We're called to a standard that God knew that we would never be able to fulfill, and yet he provided a way to fulfill that for us so that we don't have to. And it doesn't mean we're off the hook for, godly living, but it does mean that we don't have to fulfill that perfectly, and we never will.
Yeah.
And Christ did fulfill it perfectly. And so the weight is lifted.
Yeah. I think for me, it's seeing that God is generous with me in all of these categories, right? Jesus literally gave his life, gave his body for us. God has all the money, so to speak, possessions in the world, yet he generously shares them with us. He has all the time in the world for us, and that is who we get to be in relationship with. That's a perfect Father,
Yep.
right? That we get to enjoy all the benefits of simply because he loves us and decided to. That's a good God.
Hey, can I add real quick? This
Yeah.
is not the, this podcast is not the exclamation point on the absolute truth. This is an ongoing conversation. So if things were stirred in you as you listen to this, you have questions, we'd love to hear from you. Love to keep thinking about together what it is Jesus is calling us to. Don't see this as a shutdown, well, I guess I can't have any conversation about this. We'd love to keep having conversations about it as we continue to think about what Jesus has called us to be about in radical living.
Yeah, we're going to keep getting some of those things in the coming weeks.
Yeah.
So stay tuned.
All right.
All right. Thank you for listening. Hope you have a great week. Love you.